Okay, so today we're going to be covering the Officer Poundcake uh, testimony as cross-examination. I'm pretty sure this is just the regular video of the cross-examination, but so for those of you who are completely unfamiliar with this situation, it was so funny. I would highly recommend looking into it. The rapper Afroman, 3 years ago, the police were given a bad tip that he was involved in drug trafficking and that he had kidnapped somebody and kept them locked up in a torture basement. The tip was completely bad, and it is important to note that in a lot of jurisdictions, that alone, just the word of an informant, without corroborating evidence, is not enough to get a search warrant. However, in this jurisdiction, the cops were able to get a search warrant based on a bad tip from an informant. So what they did is they raided his house while he was not home. He was out giving a performance. And they busted down his gate, busted down his door, and searched through his entire house, just completely trashed it, causing some damage, although the majority of the damage was to the gate and the door. And they allegedly stole some of his money. They confiscated $5,000 he had in one of his suit pockets. And when they returned it, he claimed that they were $400 short. They disconnected his security cameras, so there are some questions about what happened there. And amusingly, one of the officers, who was a larger guy, had been distracted by a lemon pound cake that was sitting on his kitchen table. And then Afroman proceeded to be upset about the whole thing. They would not pay for the damages they did. They don't legally have to, and they didn't find anything in the search so that there were no charges brought against him. The search was bullshit, basically. So he decided to troll the ever-loving shit out of them by making songs making fun of them. They did not like this, and then they ended up suing him for defamation, false light, commercial use of your likeness, all that stuff. Most of that got dismissed, but the ones that went through were defamation and false light. And Afroman ended up winning the lawsuit. But the things that happened in the lawsuit were so funny. I'm not going to farm the whole thing, but this is the cross-examination of the guy known as Officer Poundcake. I don't even know his real name. I just know him as Officer Poundcake. I am so excited to watch this. Let's get started.
For the sake of the record, we have to keep things straight because there is another plaintiff named Sean.
Absolutely,
right?
yes, sir.
So, do you mind if I call you Sean or Sean Cooley during this time?
Whatever you'd like.
Well, and I'll be honest, just looking at it, he actually looks, he's still a bigger guy. It might just be the angle. He looks like he might have actually lost weight since the search. If so, good for him. As much as I don't like the guy, as much as I don't like any of the people who are involved in this lawsuit, aside from Afroman and his lawyer, I still want people to be doing well in their lives.
Yeah, that'd be fine.
I like to pick right up.
Okay, so I'm actually going to put this on 1.5 just because it's not,
This visit to the Pennsylvania border. You said they knew you as Lemon Poundcake.
Yeah, that was what they referred to me.
That's
as
so funny.
A person.
And they asked you for your autograph, correct?
One of them did, yes.
That's fucking amazing. Holy shit.
And so, Your Honor, if you could have a sidebar about the Exhibit D that defense intends to exhibit.
Okay, sounds good.
I'll ask a couple of questions. So, Mr. Cooley.
Oh, that's actually nice. I actually do appreciate this person but yeah, I'm going to just leave a link to this video in the chat for anybody who wants to see it. Please do consider checking it out, because even though this is mostly just the trial footage, I got to appreciate the creator here, Megan Cuniff. I don't know who that is, but for cutting out the useless bits, which a lot of coverage doesn't always do.
Yeah, that was what they referred to me as a person.
And they asked you for your autograph, correct?
One of them did, yes.
I love that. I absolutely love that.
And so, Your Honor, if you could have a sidebar about the Exhibit D that defense intends to exhibit.
Okay, sounds good.
I'll ask a couple of questions. So, Mr. Cooley, sorry, Sean, you were called Officer Poundcake by Mr. Foreman?
Multiple times.
You right?
I fucking love this is one of the clips I saw before today. Is you've been called Officer Poundcake multiple times. And one thing I actually do think from, again, I haven't actually looked at the entire trial, just clips. It's something I'm probably going to end up watching in my own time. But one thing I have noticed is that a lot of the cops, I think they were poorly prepped by their attorney, even though the lawsuit was not, I don't think they had a strong case to begin with. But one of the things that I've noticed from a couple different of the police officers is that they leaned really hard into the emotional damage side of things. They were trying to really push the idea that they were hurt by Afroman, but they kind of completely ignored the part where they had to prove it's actually defamation. They were basically arguing damages without proving the actual underlying claims. And in some cases that actually hurt them. Like, we're not going to watch it today, but in the one of the officers basically admitted that he doesn't know that Afroman isn't fucking his wife, which is fucking hilarious. But what that did is not only was that humiliating for him, he completely tanked his own case, because that means he says he doesn't actually know that the claim itself was defamatory, because it has to be false to be defamatory here in the US. So this is something that I think a lot of the cops have been doing throughout this trial, is they've been really focusing on how much they are hurt by it and completely ignoring the idea of, oh, the things they said were false. And that, I think, because I see it from like all of them, that at least in the clips that I watched, I think the lawyer might have accidentally kind of pushed them to be like that, and the lawyer might have actually fucked them over.
Hundreds of pound cakes at work from different people.
Wait, what?
By Mr. Foreman?
Multiple times. You received hundreds of pound cakes at work.
He's received hundreds of pound cakes at work? How is that a bad thing? People sent you free cake? Like, granted, if you're, already an overweight guy, which, as somebody who is also overweight, less overweight than I used to be, hopefully more overweight than I'll be in the future, I understand not wanting to kind of have that extra temptation there, but also, you're getting a lot of free cake. That's not an insignificant thing in my eyes, like, because, it's not like a pizza where you can have it be like collect on delivery, that kind of thing, and that's just harassment. They gotta buy and ship a cake to you. I failed in today's economy. That's not an insignificant amount of money that you're, well, not necessarily saving, because they're probably not going to buy that many cakes. Even a guy his size is not going to buy that many cakes. But I fail to see the issue here.
Different people.
Okay. And the context of that name comes from a music video that Mr. Foreman created, correct?
I don't know where he got it at, but you'd have to ask him that question.
I'll be honest. I know he's trying to act like he didn't actually see the video itself, or it's more than one video, because there was the original "Will You Help Me Repair My Door" video where Afroman, showed the officer looking at the pound cake. Then he made a song called "Lemon Pound Cake," which is to the tune of "Under the Boardwalk." And then I think he made it a whole album about Officer Poundcake, which is so fucking funny. I love it. But I like how he's acting like he doesn't know why he's being called Officer Poundcake, which actually does hurt his defamation claim in my eyes, but it's also just, like, that's bullshit. He knows why. Like it was everywhere, and he was directly involved in it, so I refuse to believe he had no idea.
I'm going to play what's marked Defense Exhibit D. I'd like you to watch this.
Okay.
And yeah, and this is something I know, is that they played the whole fucking song to the officer in court. I don't think they had to play the whole song, but there was nothing they could do to stop him. Actually, I actually really like it on. Actually, I'm curious. I want to see what was in the. Okay, I actually can't. Court docs. I was trying to see what other folders the lawyer had in his quick select, because sometimes you can see some funny stuff in there, but I can't really see anything interesting. The song actually sounds pretty good in 1.5. So nice. And that was the clip. The fact that he's kind of going back and forth with the the pound cake. It's so funny just to see him the little. Let me see the little back and forth nod. It's so funny. And also, I will say that I'm sure they're gonna show it again. I haven't seen I've only listened to the song. I haven't seen the video.
He's hungry and he's big as hell. He was sniffing for weed, then he smelled another smell.
Yeah. So again, just looking at that image right there, it might also be he might be wearing a bulletproof vest as well. So that'll actually, those are pretty thick. Those will add a little bit of bulk. But I will say, because he looks like pretty spherical in this clip. Based on what I'm seeing in the testimony, he looks like he might have actually lost a little bit of weight.
What was that? Mama's living
Again, I think they could have, like, 30 seconds would have been sufficient to actually make the point. But I also do think that Afroman's lawyer was helping Afroman troll the ever-loving shit out of the cops. Because one thing I didn't mention earlier is that Afroman continued to make songs about them all throughout the trial. And I'm sure he's going to release another one, or probably more than one, coming up, just making fun of them. Because I cannot wait to see those. But he's been continually trolling the shit out of them. And then, I know one of the videos, I think it was Lick 'em Low Lisa, which, another amazing title. I think, if I remember correctly, he filmed part of that video in his lawyer's office. And also, just some of the stuff the lawyer's done, for example, playing the entire songs about the officers to them in court, when you probably don't need to show them the whole thing to get your point across. I think he was just kind of rubbing salt in the wound, like really just pushing more and more and more just to mess with them even more. And a lot of lawyers, I don't think, would do that because they are kind of married to their professionalism, which I completely understand. And they're just saying, hey, I'm just going to do what it takes to help you win your case. I'm not necessarily going to be doing extra to really make a point. I feel Afroman's lawyer was helping him make a point, and that actually, I think, really goes a long way towards how entertaining this whole thing is. Like I say, I like how Afroman has like the most flamboyant suits. It's great. I mean, I'm sure I'm gonna put it in the thumbnail of the video I make out of this, but Afroman went to court in an American suit, like an American flag suit. It was so gaudy. Like, as I've heard multiple people say, he looks like an American from an anime, and that is the most accurate description I've ever heard. He's got some. I actually really have grown to appreciate how gaudy and flamboyant his suits are. Like, it's so self-aware. I mean, it probably cost a lot of money to get all those suits too. Like, as much as he's not like as much of a mainstream name as some other musicians, from what I understand, he really hustles and makes a lot of money for the level of fame he's at, and I respect that. I also do find the editing for this music video very endearing. It's like, it feels very YouTube. And not like modern, when I say it's very YouTube, it's not like modern YouTube where there's actually a lot of really high production value stuff on YouTube. I'm talking like old school YouTube where people were doing just basic transitions and effects. You know, like the stuff I do on my main channel videos, because I don't do any kind of insane editing on there.
Make the sheriff wanna put down his gun and cut him a Living pound cake, he wanna put down his life. Living pound cake, trending on TikTok. Living pound cake, he's a family guy. Living pound cake, munchies because he got.
I kind of wish we got to see the cop's face during this. Because I bet he's given some pretty funny facial expressions. Because I think they're playing the whole video specifically to humiliate him. Which, normally, I'm not, like, as much as I can act like a bit of a dick, a bit of a crazy person online, in general, I don't like, twisting the knife into people. I don't really, whenever I make fun of somebody, I try to do it in the spirit of having fun and kind of making everybody laugh, that kind of thing. But these cops, they've been acting like assholes this entire time. The fact that they brought this to trial, I believe this was a SLAP suit, which stands for Strategic Lawsuit Against Public Participation, which is basically a lawsuit designed to use the system to shut down free speech. That's kind of the whole point because lawsuits in America are fucking expensive, especially if you're on the defense side, because if you're a defendant in a lawsuit, that pretty much means you're on the hook for all your legal fees. And legal fees cost a lot, even if you get like the cheapest lawyer available. Unless they're willing to do it for free. Some lawyers are, on principle, willing to do pro bono work. But if it's not, it's expensive. Which is why a lot of jurisdictions nowadays have what are called anti-SLAPP laws, which basically you can, in your initial motion to dismiss, you can basically say, hey, I think this is a SLAPP lawsuit for XYZ reasons. So not only should you dismiss this lawsuit right away, you should also have them pay my attorney's fees. So that will not only mean you can get your lawsuit done for free, it also means that some lawyers are going to be willing to take that on contingency, which means you don't pay if you lose, which actually just enables people to defend these lawsuits without the risk of financial ruin. Because I'll be honest, as much as I'm really enjoying this trial, one thing that's probably true is I bet Afroman spent more on legal fees than it would have cost to just settle the lawsuit out. I genuinely believe that he could have just made the lawsuit go away with a payment and it would have cost less than what he paid his lawyers. But I think it's also really important that he did take it to trial, and I appreciate that he actually made a stand for American values, because free speech is an American value. It is something that is core to our central beliefs. And I do think that the fact that not only did he fight this in court, not only did he win in court, which I think is excellent, he basically proved that, hey, not only can you not silence people, but if you do, the original humiliation you faced will be returned 100-fold by your attempts to silence it. And I think that sends an important message to the people in power all over the country.
Stop it there.
Okay.
So
That was funny.
Correct? Mm-hmm. You would admit that you with the glasses?
And honestly, he looks a little bit nervous. I might be just looking a little bit too into it, but his finger looks like he's shivering a little bit. He looks like he's a little antsy.
Poundcake on the counter?
Like he's fidgeting.
And that is security footage from the search of Mr. Foreman's residence?
I assume, yes.
But there's no question that you during the search.
Yes.
There is question?
No, that was me, yes, absolutely.
So during the search, Mr. Newman asked you to watch the money.
Correct.
And you watched that money until he came back and got it.
Absolutely.
I'm going to play what's going to be Defense Exhibit E, which is like a signed block.
Okay. So I wonder what they're doing all these sidebars for, because when they're doing sidebars, the whole point of them is that they can ask questions of the judge and kind of argue something between them without the jury hearing it. Which the idea is there's a lot of things that juries can't necessarily hear in the moment. Like, for example, if I'm gonna I want to present this kind of thing, is this going to be admissible? Is this something I'm allowed to ask? Is this something the jury is allowed to hear? And I've actually been in a jury once before, a criminal jury, so I've actually experienced a lot of this stuff firsthand. So I'm not sure why they're doing a sidebar before every piece of video evidence they're presenting, because presumably the admissibility has already been decided before trial, because that's what usually happens. Like, usually there's not usually surprises in a trial, in a courtroom. It's just they kind of already laid out how the trial is mostly going to go, and now it's just the chance to show it off to a jury so that they can make a decision. So I'm not sure why they're doing a sidebar for every single before they introduce every single piece of evidence.
Oh, you didn't?
No.
But you were caught on body cam that time, right?
What do you mean caught?
So other officers who wore body cam, you would be seen on that body cam, correct?
Yes. So if I was close to him, I would have, yes.
Oh, let me play this clip for you.
I don't like the angling on that body cam.
Off to the extreme left of here, we just saw a gentleman. Was that you?
Yes, I believe so.
So you are in this body cam footage.
Could you run it back just a second and let me see?
Oh, let me start it over.
Okay, that'd be fine.
So, just for the sake of the record, we see two people in this video. Do you know who the lady is?
Yeah, I believe that's Mr. Foreman's wife, ex-wife.
Who's the other gentleman in the doorway?
I can't tell, but I don't know.
Would it appear to be Kenneth Dick?
It could be, it's just not,
Yeah, I will say. I mean,
maybe look at this, I think this is a better.
I mean, I don't know really any of these people by face, but I will say we're also looking through 2 layers of artifacting. There's the original body cam blurriness, and then there's the blurriness that is on the YouTube video. And let me just, okay, it's already on 720p, so it's as high as it's going to go.
Image of it.
Yeah, it does appear to be Kenny, yes.
Because it is dark on my screen here.
Yeah, I really don't like that this body cam is angled upwards. They should really make an effort to keep them like head on so that they can actually see the relevant information. Because I've known, like, I don't have the highest opinion of this police department in general, but you know, with police, like any other profession, there's going to be good and bad people working in it. One thing I've seen from police departments who are not the best is they'll do things to deliberately obscure their body cams when they're doing something that might be a little bit shady. And that's one of the things that can happen. And it might just be an honest, like, misplacement of the body cam. But, like, you want the thing to be framed in a way that it'll catch all the relevant information all the time. And it's just not what's happening here.
On the extreme left, we see a gentleman there. Is that you?
Yes, it is.
And this would be during the search of Mr. Foreman's residence, correct?
Yes.
I want to see if I can see what that... it's blurry, but put on some... Yeah, no, I can't. Put on some gangster rap and handle it. Okay, I wanted to see what that sign right here was referencing. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I gotta say, just everything about Afroman, like, from what I've seen, again, I haven't really heard anything from him before this lawsuit, aside from his Because I Got High video, or song, I should say, and the video associated with it, because that was, you know, very popular. He's pretty much a one-hit wonder until recently. But everything I've seen from him is, like, the kids today would call him an aura farmer.
Let me rewind this a second. Looking at the table here in the bottom right-hand corner, is that the evidence bags with the money?
Yes, sir, it is.
Those are the evidence bags you were...
Yeah, it's covered by the timestamp, so I can't see anything.
It's a evidence bag, yes.
An evidence
So it's not
bag.
the money evidence bag.
It is the
Basic-
money evidence bag, yeah.
This is another thing. This is something that I get a little bit pedantic about, because I am, like, one of those people who really likes speaking and writing properly in most circumstances. There are definitely instances where I don't necessarily use proper spelling, grammar, all that stuff, but a and an is very basic grammar that I learned in fucking kindergarten, which is if there's a vowel sound, you use n. If there is a consonant sound, you use a or depending on how you pronounce and inflect and all that stuff. But a evidence bag, no, this is like it's not even like complex stuff. This is basic elementary school stuff. That just bugs the shit out of me.
And you're watching it right now, you're looking at it.
Yes.
And sorry, if you see my model just bugging the fuck out like that, that's usually because I am drinking some water, because I have water next to me, because I don't want to destroy my voice. And every time I take a drink, it makes it look like I'm just flipping out. Like, here, I'll do it right now. Look at this. I don't know why it does that, but it does, and it's kind of funny.
Okay.
The person's following you? Sean, it would be a fair statement to say you didn't watch that money the entire time that Brian Newland left it in your possession, correct?
No, you are correct. But you can also hear me tell another deputy, keep an eye on that money. If you want to play
Which
it back.
deputy was that?
I don't know. I have no idea, but you can hear me and see me talking to another deputy before I walked out.
The guy walking right behind you would have been the one.
No, I was looking, the guy behind me would have been behind me. Just play it back and you'll see it.
Okay, let's replay.
Yeah, another thing I did notice, and this does also seem to be an issue in a lot of trials, because I do find court footage very interesting. I just enjoy it. One thing, as I mentioned, is I like to, well, so for those who don't know, I work a blue-collar job. I'm I work in a warehouse for a small company. I'm not going to say what we sell because that might be specific enough to actually tell you where I work, which I don't want to do. But I work for a very small company, one of like a dozen employees. And so I'm kind of left to my own devices all day. I just have kind of a pile of papers of things I got to do throughout the warehouse. And they just kind of say, oh, just go ahead and get it done. So I like to actually listen to a lot of stuff in my ear as I'm working. Sometimes it's VTuber stuff, sometimes it's video essays, and sometimes it's court footage, because I just find that interesting. I've noticed that a lot of people really try to over-explain themselves when they're on the stand or when they're being asked questions, and it never seems to actually help them, except in the rare cases where the people really know what they're doing. Because it's just... So I feel like if a lot of people just really try to explain everything, even if it makes them, they think it's going to make them look bad. It just can, it's interesting to me.
Okay.
You said you're not worried. No one's here.
No.
Well, it's
I believe I told him to keep an eye on the money before that.
No, let's play again.
Yeah, I'll be honest. Again, because we're going through 2 layers of audio artifacting as well, there's the original audio on the body cam, and then there's the audio captured from this speaker by the people recording the trial. I cannot make out really anything that's being said, so I don't really have anything to add as far as what they're hearing.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah. Did you hear it say, "What's the money"?
No,
Before it said, "I'm not worried. There's no one in there."
Yeah, that's what you said.
That's why I said yes. Yes.
So the person asked you about watching money. You said you weren't worried because no one was in the place.
It does appear that way. Yes.
Yeah.
For the record, 35.27.
I mean, I'll also say I'm of the opinion that whenever the police are taking evidence, especially if it's something like money, I think there needs to be cameras on it at all times until it's like at the point of being locked up into a locker. Because that's something that can be like so easily misplaced, and it's so foreseeable that something can be misplaced or deliberately or accidentally, because people are going to want money. They want to steal money, and once you have cash, it's hard to prove where that cash came from specifically. So I think there needs to be cameras on it until it's locked up. And Ryan Forge, thank you for the follow.
I'm going to ask a question. I do not want you to tell me anything you have talked with any attorney with Mr. Klingler or his associate. I do not want to know that. But I do want to know, you said you were looking for an attorney in the fall of 2023, correct?
We all were.
Okay. And so you employed an attorney to send a cease and desist letter prior to sending lawsuit, correct?
No.
Okay.
The testimony was fall of 2022. The litigation was filed in March of 2023.
Yeah. And I will also acknowledge one thing that a lot of people do seem to get wrong, because there's actually a lot of misconceptions about the court system. Because I have a little bit of an autistic interest in court stuff, just it's kind of like my interest in history. It's like I have enough interest to kind of listen and watch videos about it, not enough to actually like study it myself. But one thing people do seem to get wrong about court stuff a lot is they think that a cease and desist is actually kind of like a necessary step or has any real power. It's basically a strongly worded letter from a lawyer, basically says, stop or I'm going to sue. It doesn't really mean anything aside from that. However, it can show that it can help you in court in the sense that if you're suing somebody, it can show that you tried to get it resolved outside of court, and it can show essentially that you're trying to act in good faith. I don't think it's necessary in this case. Like, let's say they were completely true and that Afroman actually was defaming them, doing all these things. I don't think they would have been required to send a cease and desist at this point. Or they're never required, but I don't think they needed it to make themselves look good.
Make it record.
No, let me rephrase that then. So when I mistakenly referred to fall of 23, it was actually fall of 22, correct?
What was the fall of 22? I'm not sure what
You started looking for an attorney in the fall of 2022.
I believe, I don't think I'm the one that made the original call for an attorney.
Okay.
It was one of the other deputies. We had discussed it. We had to have permission from the sheriff at that time to do anything
Oh, that's interesting.
You took some of the phone calls, the threatening phone calls, correct?
in dispatch.
Yeah. Did you make a report of those?
They were all documented, yes.
And they investigated and traced the calls?
Didn't trace them. They were all ghost numbers or Showed up as no phone number at all.
So nobody was ever prosecuted? No one was called in to...
Well, they couldn't find them. They don't have any idea who they were.
But you're not saying that was Mr. Foreman making the call, correct?
I don't know whether he did or not. His rhetoric led up to it.
Yeah, they're not saying a lot of interesting right now, so I don't have a whole lot to add.
During your significant time as a law enforcement officer, the public has criticized your duties, correct?
Yeah, some, yes.
You've been called a lot of derogatory names?
Not really.
This may sound stupid.
You
but
may not necessarily
I believe it
know.
applies to myself. We're not the thinnest people in the world, are we?
I'm not going to call you fat, but okay.
I was calling myself fat.
One thing I will say, that's another thing I really like. I think that was a very clever thing that Afroman's lawyer did there, where he really disarmed this guy, which is impressive actually after he already just trolled the shit out of him by playing the entire Lemon Poundcake song. Like, you know, the lawyer doing a little bit of self-deprecating humor, calling himself fat, and you know the guy's a little overweight too. Like, you know, they're both big guys, as am I. So like, but the fact that he was able to do that, he kind of put him off of his guard. I'm pretty impressed at how adeptly he was able to do that. And sorry if you hear meowing in the background. My cat has decided to join us.
But you would agree that we're not thin people.
Absolutely.
And you would agree that how you conduct yourself during a search and everything reflects directly on your reputation?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I will also say, you know, you mentioned, you know, how you conduct yourself during a search directly affects your reputation. I think that if the officers during that search were 100% professional, did the minimum amount of damage they could, like, you know, they busted down his gate and busted down his door. If they had, like, actively searched for other ways to do that without necessarily causing damage, and did the best they could with it, and then, you know, didn't mishandle any of the evidence, didn't cut his fucking security cams, which that is something that pisses me off. I think that should be illegal. If they did nothing like that, I don't think there would actually be a problem, really. I don't think there would actually be this animosity. And they just, especially if they issued an apology, if they said, look, we got a bad tip, we did a search that turned out to be unnecessary, we're sorry that it had to come to this. I think that could have avoided this whole situation.
You don't believe everything you read on the internet, do you?
No.
You actually probably don't believe everything you read in the newspaper, do you?
No.
You would agree that Exhibit D that I played, the song Lemon Poundcake, is a music video for entertainment?
There again, he made accusations that I smoke weed on there, which I don't. So
you-
that was a lie as well.
Well, I'm actually curious. I don't know what the laws are in this area. I want to say it was Ohio is where this happened. I might be completely wrong about that, but I don't know if weed is legal in Ohio or not. So I don't know if saying he smoked weed is actually, like, let's say, assuming it's false, and assuming that Afroman knew it was false and did it maliciously and all that stuff, I don't know if that's actually still defamatory, because I think it has to harm his reputation. Because if it's not a crime, it's probably not defamation per se, which the way it works in the United States is there's two kinds of defamation. There's like defamation, I don't remember the Latin for it, but there's regular defamation, where it's basically saying, hey, you defamed me and you caused me damages. You need to pay me for the damages you caused. Like, you know, if you lose a job or you lose a sponsorship or something like that, they might have to pay you the value of what you lost financially. If you had emotional damage, they'll have to pay for what you paid in therapy, that kind of thing. But defamation per se, you don't have to prove damages at all. They just say, this is so bad that we're going to assume that you have been damaged, and you don't even need to prove that. So that'll be things like saying you committed a crime, said you did something that would harm your professional reputation, or if you did something that would like sexual impropriety, or you have a communicable disease, that kind of thing. I don't think that if weed is legal in that area, which I don't know if it is or not, I think you would have to prove damages for that.
So you are suing based upon him saying you smoked weed in the song?
No, I'm just saying that
So that
goes
statement
along
is
with
not
some
part
of
of
the
this
other rhetoric
lawsuit?
he's done.
Let's let him finish.
Okay.
I say that goes along with some of the other rhetoric that he's told about us, lies he's told about us.
Could that be exaggeration to make the song funny?
I don't think it's funny.
That is not the right answer.
Would a reasonable person listening to that believe that Mr. Foreman is stating facts?
You don't know what somebody's thinking. You wouldn't think we'd get 300 calls a day threatening to kill us. Somebody's buying into it.
Again, that's one of the things I mentioned this earlier, but I think they're really pushing hard on how much damage they feel he's caused to them emotionally. When I think there were better answers to that. Let's say he didn't want to be married to the whole plan of no reasonable person could believe that he was exaggerating. Let's say he didn't want to say that. I think he could have had a leg to stand on if he said something like reasonable minds can differ on that. So like I think that the statement was ambiguous enough that a reasonable person could believe that he was actually saying I smoked weed. Instead of saying how much, people threatened to kill him, all this stuff, which honestly, as somebody who is a very small-time public figure myself, doesn't really show on this channel, but on the main channel, I have about 7,000 subscribers. I get a non-zero amount of shit from the public. I would not be surprised if this guy got quite a bit due to the negative publicity that this police department got. But that's not relevant to this part of this trial, because he's basically arguing damages when he hasn't proved defamation.
When Jerry Reed sung the song, "When you're hot, when you're not," and the judge said that to him right before he sentenced him to prison, that's an actual fact, or is that an exaggeration?
So we're going to strike all that because we don't know anything about that case, and he's not going to become a witness. So until you establish a foundation that he knows what you're saying, you don't get to testify. So set it up right, I'll let you do it.
Mr. Cooley, what is your favorite genre of music?
Yeah, and as I will say that from what I've seen, I'm not a huge fan of this judge. He does seem to have a bit of a bias towards the police. However, I do think that ruling right there, maybe he shouldn't have editorialized as much as he did, but I think the ruling right there of cutting off that line of questioning because the foundation hasn't been laid, I think that is a correct ruling, honestly. I think Afroman's lawyer maybe stumbled a little bit there.
60s.
Give me an example of the song.
Free Bird, American Pie.
Those are good songs.
Leonard Skinner.
Is the song American Pie, you've listened to it, correct?
Multiple times, yes.
Is it literally about a pie?
No.
It's more about something else.
Yes.
It's for entertainment.
Yes.
And you were entertained by it.
I like the lyrics, yes.
And you don't, in that song, American Pie, do you believe that was fact?
That what was fact?
What was said in that song?
No.
Although this is a good line of questioning.
This may sound stupid, but when people talk about dirty defense attorneys, are they just saying I didn't wash my suit, or are they exaggerating?
I don't know what's on their mind.
It would probably be an opinion, though.
There again, I don't know. Maybe they know something on you.
Like I didn't take a shower that day?
Or that, or you've done something you shouldn't be doing.
Oh.
Okay. I like how he completely got him, almost tricked him into, he was trying to avoid the idea of really kind of agreeing too much about the idea that, turns of phrase can be metaphorical without actually saying that. But the lawyer just completely got him to, in one question, accidentally admit the thing he wanted him to admit. Which honestly, it probably wasn't a thing that he really should have been fighting him on, because that's just a losing point, honestly, for the cop.
Person yells crooked cops, they may be just referring to cops in general doing bad things?
It could be.
Okay. Expressing their opinions about what they think?
They could be, yes.
Okay. So, I'm going to get this straight. So you're saying that being called Officer Poundcake has colored you in a false light, correct?
No.
Okay, so being called Officer Poundcake has nothing to do with this lawsuit.
No.
So the only thing that you're saying painted you in a negative light is the general comments calling the Adams County Sheriff's Department thieves.
They're not
correct?
calling me a thief.
So there is a specific post
Okay.
that calls you a thief.
There's photographs of me on it, and he's accusing all of us of being thieves, so that incorporates me as well.
So it refers to the Adams County Sheriff's Department as a group then. And you're
Okay.
part of that.
This member-
So, as I mentioned earlier, there is a dispute of fact in this case where Afroman had the police had confiscated, not confiscated, but they had temporarily taken custody of some of the money that he had in his home. I think Afroman says he had $5,000 in a suit pocket, and the cops took that, they put it into an evidence bag, and then later returned it, and Afroman claims it's $400 short. The police say that it was miscounted and that the amount returned was the amount taken. So there's a dispute there. Honestly, I think it's one of those things where I think it's reasonable to say that a reasonable person could believe that they had stolen the money, and therefore calling them thieves is not defamatory. Because even in, like, the light most favorable to the cops, something fucky happened, whether it was an honest mistake in counting or not. It's understandable where this concern would come from.
Sheriff's Department, not the entire sheriff's office.
But it doesn't list your name.
Yeah, there's places that list my name, I'm sure.
What do you mean you're sure?
I'm pretty sure that there was some that had my name on it. I mean, I don't recall which ones, but
We haven't introduced any evidence by your attorney. What post are you referring to? I need a date and time.
I don't know. I'm just saying that there could be. I don't know.
There could be, but you don't know.
Yeah, this guy, the fact that he can't answer this question is actually really bad for his case. Because, yeah, defamation is not just he said mean things about me. He said this specific false thing about me that he knew. In this case, he would have to prove that he knew it was false because, you know, as a police officer in the line of duty, he was probably considered a public figure for the purposes of this defamation suit. I don't know for sure, but when it's a public figure, it's harder for them to sue for defamation because it's considered a part of the public interest to be able to comment on public figures. So you generally have to not only prove that the statement was false, but that they either knew or should have known that it was false. So the fact that he can't actually point to specific statements, that just shows he's very unprepared. And that not only should he have kind of done his homework and really kind of known his shit before getting up on stand, the lawyer should have prepped him too. Like, this is actually, I think, a really bad indication for how good this the plaintiff's lawyer is.
Testimony to what you know, not what you're guessing at,
Yeah, I have done as far as I can.
as far as you can.
Yeah, I'm glad I sped this up because these pauses, even at 1.5x, are diabolical.
Your defamation claim would be based solely on being called a thief as a group of people, and you're one of those groups.
I'm concerned about me being called a thief as well as my fellow officers.
They get their chance. Let's talk about you.
Right.
Okay. But that's the sole basis of your defamation claim?
Being called a thief?
Yes.
That's the majority of it, yes.
But not being called Officer Poundcake.
No.
And
Okay. Well, I'm glad he's not dying on the hill that Officer Poundcake is defamatory because it's very clearly not. Okay. So yeah, that was the
I have no further questions for this witness at this time.
okay. Yeah, that was the cross-examination of Officer Poundcake. This is something I've been wanting to see. Eventually, I'm going to end up watching probably the whole trial because there's a lot of great moments. Again, there's the one part where the one cop basically admitted that he might be getting cucked by Afroman, which is really funny. But I'm probably not going to, farm it for content, but I wanted to actually see at least one of them. This was a lot of fun. The Afroman trial in itself, this isn't the most funny part of the trial, for sure, but I really enjoyed that. So yeah, for those of you who are watching on stream, the link will still be in the chat. For those watching in the uploaded video after the fact, the link will be in the description. Please do check that out, and I'll see you in a couple days for another video.